So I've done the calculations and I've done the math and the informatics, and I figured out the top 5 winners of this campaign, so let's go over them. And just to remind everybody, we are back on turn 550. I did do a InfoAddicts score for both the 550 end results, which is where we decided to end it, as well as the kind of the fast forward thing that I did in the last video. Ultimately, it doesn't change the end results, end results. I mean, obviously, middle things are going to change, but yes. So let's go ahead and look through the InfoAddicts back at 550 and see just a couple of things before I announce the score. Population. I mean, I think it's pretty clear what went down. I think that. I mean, how do I even put this? They, I mean, one thing that I did find that was interesting with the Zulu, that managed to actually get to the #1 rank in military manpower. They had a significant amount more than Pocatello, which would have been interesting if Shaka devoted his time to going after the Shoshone North America, but they didn't. As we know, they focus in on the Netherlands. So anyways, let's continue out here and just show everybody what we got going on. GNP. Now there's one category that I didn't do anything with. That was approval. Everyone's at 100% approval, so that's dumb. But yeah, so I didn't do anything. So the way I did this is I took the top 5 because that's all I really cared about was the top 5. I've got an idea of who was in the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th spot. But I just cared about the top 5. So I took the top 5 nations in each one of these categories, and then I gave them points. There's a lot of people suggesting all sorts of different strategies in order to do the InfoAddicts. Ultimately, like I said, it doesn't change the end result of how I did it. But I gave them points. That way, you know, I'm not punishing if I would have done the score, it would have been just much more complicated if I would have done like golf strategy, because that means that I would have had to included everybody. The way I did it was that I gave the first person 5 points, second person 4 points, 3 points, 2 points, and then 1 point. My whole thing was that if you didn't make it to the top 5, then I don't think you should get points for that sort of thing. I mean, these are the best of the best. And just to remind everybody, we ended the campaign off with 32. I'm sorry, Mongolia. I didn't mean to not include you. 32 nations ended up surviving long enough to be a part of this game, which, yeah, I mean, they should be proud. They should definitely be proud. So anyways, I think that's it. Cities, once again, was a big one that I always like to look at. This category was dominated by Pocatello. Really, no big surprise there. William held on to his wonders category, and that is about it. So anyways, let's get into this. So just to kind of throw out a few of the nations that did okay, but they didn't kind of place. I got Byzantium. Byzantium was definitely in their top 10, as well as China. Surprisingly enough, these nations both kind of relaxed. They didn't do much in this campaign. I think they definitely went under the surface of things. They didn't. You know, they weren't like a huge factor in a lot of the game, but they stayed behind, and they were I don't know, they were powerful. So was Siam. So it was, I don't know the exact order, but it was Siam, China, and Byzantium. These nations had kind of all stayed behind. They were always powerful, but they just didn't do enough to really get into that top 5 spot. And again, I know I talked about top 5, but I will give you the 7th place winner. We have Mongolia in 7th place, Mongolia in 7th place, and the Huns in 6th place. Now that might surprise a lot of you guys, because, you know, it's like, what? I kept referring to this campaign as the Big Four. The Big Four. That was Mongolia, Attila, Shaka, and Pocatello. They were all these very big empires that didn't do a lot, but it turns out that actually hurts Mongolia and Attila, Mongolia and the Huns, because, yeah, like I said, Mongolia ended up in 7th place, while the Huns ended up in 6th. Very, very shocking. So let's go ahead and get into this. Who ranked number 5? So number 5 in this world was, surprisingly enough, the Inca. And I don't think I talked about it that much. Again, if you go back into the last video when I kind of fast forward a little bit, when I went to turn 600, they do end up taking 2 Brazilian cities. I mean, they were a lot stronger than we thought. I mean, they were actually a really interesting foe to head up against the Shoshone. You know, it would have been a lot more interesting in this campaign, at least, if someone would have taken over the Mayan city here. But wow, The Inca were really, really strong, and they placed very high. The funny thing about the Inca was they never really got that top spot. I don't think they ever got number one, but they were constantly in the top five, constantly getting points, constantly, and it eventually just added up for them. And it ended up for them, and they ended up getting in that fifth spot, which was pretty shocking. I don't know. I was very, 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 very surprised to see this. So anyways, let's move on to the top four. Now, this might surprise a lot of you guys. Fourth place was actually William. Yeah, William got fourth place. Yeah, it wasn't even close. He was surprisingly very far behind, and again, I mean, obviously he had a lot of the info addicts categories. I mean, for a while there, for like these top like 7 categories, I mean, he didn't have any score at all. Nothing at all. But finally, he started catching up when it came to tourism, great works, obviously. Oh, actually, no. Well, he tied, but influence was a big one for him. You have, what's the other one? Obviously, wonders was a very, very big one for him. So yeah, I mean, William, it took him a while to get going. It did, and I'm surprised too. Again, he might have been the one that ultimately wins the game. I mean, again, it is kind of controversial still, but in terms of just raw empire, I mean, you gotta say, like, it's, if you were just to look at this, world as a whole, you wouldn't look at William first as being the most powerful nation, I guess. But I mean, that's debatable, definitely, and I'm very extremely proud. Honestly, William has been my favorite story of the game, to be honest. I absolutely loved this storyline, and probably one of my favorite storylines of all the AI-only battles is William just came out of nowhere and just, I think, definitely shocked me. I'm so happy to see a very, very strong Netherlands in this game. So I think that they were my personal favorite. Now that the campaign is over, I can say I really, really was rooting for them. I really tried to give them the opportunity. I think because I did. I thought that they maybe deserved a chance of possibly winning, but they just, things happened. But I really tried to give them a chance, but it just didn't work out. So anyways, down to the top 3 now. And I think you could probably already assume number 3 is Bismarck, right next to William. He did a pretty good job, and again, like, ultimately, I think that part of it was that Germany has had control over these cities for much longer than William has. I mean, maybe not. I don't know. I mean, you've got a lot better yield, I personally think. William has a lot of these cities out here in, like, kind of coastal regions, which aren't providing that much yield. Land, if you have sea resources, yeah, then this stuff is really, really useful. But William had no sea resources at all. He had like maybe one. Yeah, he had whales. Obviously, he had some strategic resources in oil, but that was it. And ultimately, Germany, I think, did a little bit better. And my philosophy is just because he controlled more land, which ultimately led to more yields, and he was able to do do a lot more in production and population and stuff like that. Actually, maybe not population, but yeah. I mean, again, Bismarck was one of those stories where he constantly stayed in the top 5, but that's kind of how he did. I mean, he did a lot better than the Inca staying in the top 5. I know I said that the Inca were in the top 5, but Germany was much more consistent, very, very consistent in a lot of their categories. I mean, he was number 1 in net gold, which helped him out a lot too. So, anyways, number 2 is Shaka. And I don't think there's really much to say there. That was pretty obvious. Shaka was the only really nation, I think, that could have caught the Shoshone, and he did a good job. But ultimately, when it comes down to it, number 1 were the Shoshone, and I am shocked by this because, as I said from episode 1, I thought it was a crazy pick to pick Pocatello, and I think that he got incredibly lucky. Looking back, the New World's just too powerful because at the end of the day, if anyone that gets control of the New World fast enough, no one's going to be able to attack them because we all know that the AIs suck at naval combat. So at the end of the day, CIVS in the New World just way too strong because no one has the possibility of taking them out very early on. I apologize, Shaka, for not giving you too much of the limelight, but I mean, we all were waiting for it. And the Shoshone, it wasn't even close, guys. The score was like the Shoshone dominated, like absolutely dominated. I didn't even I think they had almost double the score that the Zulu did. Not completely double, but they really had almost close to double the amount of points than everybody else. I'm sure if you combined some of the other nations' score, the Shoshone still would have beaten them out. I mean, it's just, oh my gosh, I think it's pretty obvious. But yeah, I mean, he did a very, very good job. And again, I think this just the New World, just too powerful. And I don't know what we're going to do about that because, they got lucky. I think that it could have really been anybody. It could have been the Aztecs. It could have been Washington. It could have been the Iroquois. It could have been really anybody in the New World as long as they were the one to take out the other nations first. Because at the end of the day, there's just too much land. There's just too much land in this region. So yeah, I mean, the Shoshone are clearly, I would say, obviously, I mean, I think we all know from the comment section that if we were an alien, if we're looking up from the why do I always call the adjective, is the adjective? The people of Florence, I always call them something wrong. Anyways, if we were to be looking up from the Death Star of Florence, I think we all could agree that the Shoshone are the most powerful. Although, the Zulu look pretty wide as well. But, I mean, that's all it looks, baby. That's all it looks, because Pocatello absolutely dominated the Info Addicts. I mean, it wasn't even, like I said, it wasn't even close. But, let's be real. At the end of the day, anybody that picked the Shoshone, the Netherlands, or the Zulu should be very proud of themselves. They pretty much picked right. I mean, in another universe, or you could argue, I mean, people, not even another universe. I mean, you could argue right now that they are the real winners. And that's something that I really like about these sort of AI-only campaigns is it's all about the journey, and it's all about what the viewers take away from watching the AIs and their interpretation of what the future would have been. And I don't know. I mean, just the assumption of how the campaign was going, and it's all up for debate. It's all up for interpretation. Some people might be able to argue that maybe the Mayans had the best campaign. Maybe the Aztecs had the best campaign, with them eventually settling Australia back around like turn whatever 600 or something like that. But still, I mean, it's all up for debate, and that's what I guess the fun thing about this whole series is. So anyways, I've been doing quite a bit of crack today, so this is gonna be really interesting. Trying to go over the winners that picked the Shoshone. You know how you have those really bad substitute teachers that don't know how to pronounce anything? I'm going to make them look like they're geniuses, because this is about to be pretty terrible. So let's go ahead and kick it off with an easy one. Just kidding, very hard one. Mattis, Nowak, the Baconator, Super Eddie, Tanner Kocher, Ernest Hung, Tough Spoon, Pleasant Cheese, UT Born 22, Violent G33K Rage, Z-Rug, Rory, It's Will, Tomlin Tulips, very nice, Caleb Parkinson, Jared Riley, Emmanuel Katz. Emmanuel Katz. I know that's not your full name. I'm apologize. I'm not even going to attempt that one. Ramos Julie, AP Realism, Presley Franklin, Steven Juniverse, DCLXVI. I'm not sure if that actually spells something, but I'm just going to kind of do that, I guess. William Silverwolf, Freezy, 600, Doctor Who, 456, very good show. Joshua Costello, quotations, Napoleon, Mr. K-Dog, 47, The Dringer, Minecraft Gaming, Mike Price, Spence Epic Gamer, Carso 765567, very specific, I like that. Papa Cart 666, Red is Feisty, Capital Skull, Bose Calipage. I'm sorry, that's just terrible. Brian, I can't even, I wish that my knowledge of the world and its pronunciation was so much more normal and better than it is, I guess. Brian Johnson, Real Hip Hop Maniac, XXTMSJXX, Donald Duck, and Gabriel S. Thank you guys so much for watching this campaign. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. I had a very fun time, and I hope you guys did too. Like I said, at the end of the day, it's all up for interpretation, and that's what's so good about it. I mean, I think that I might at some point try to argue that maybe Florence won, because maybe Venice, the viewer, the submarine and the ice, maybe they won because they got to experience all this without actually dying, and they didn't even have to participate in any of this stuff. Anyways, guys, I'm very excited for the next AI only campaign. I'm gonna definitely change up a lot of kind of the formula, because I think we needed something. I think it needs something a little bit, kind of a breath of fresh air, and that's kind of what I'm thinking. So I'm extremely excited to see how the next AI only campaign is. It's going to be a lot different from what we're used to. So anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching this series, and I will see you guys very soon.